The stars had always called to humanity. For 300 years, they had answered that call with ships and stations, with colonies and trade routes. But they had also answered with something rare in the galaxy. They had answered with peace. In the year 2847, humanity was known throughout the galactic community as a quiet species. They kept to themselves. They traded fairly. They solved problems with words instead of weapons. Many alien civilizations saw this as weakness. The Valthorian Empire saw it as an invitation. The Valthorian Empire stretched across 12,000 star systems. They had conquered and ruled for 10,000 years. Their warships darkened the skies of 100 worlds. Their soldiers had crushed rebellions on planets whose names were now forgotten. To them, humanity was just another small species that would eventually bow or break. General Amara Okonkwo stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch and watched the stars blur past. She was 63 years old. Her hair had turned gray long ago, and lines marked her dark skin like the rings of an ancient tree. But her eyes remained sharp. Those eyes had once commanded fleets. Now they sought something more difficult than victory. They sought understanding. Behind her, two women studied data tablets and spoke in low voices. General Lin Mei Hua was small and precise in her movements. She had designed the stealth systems that made human ships invisible to enemy sensors. She had spent 40 years making humanity safe from threats that never came. Now she hoped her work would never be needed. General Elena Vasquez was the youngest of the three at 58. She was tall and broad-shouldered, with a quick smile that had earned the loyalty of thousands of soldiers. She had rebuilt Mars after the Great Collapse. She had fed millions and healed wounds that politics could not touch. The people of the solar system loved her like a grandmother they had never met. These three women were legends. They were the finest military minds humanity had ever produced, and they had chosen to become diplomats. "The Valthorians have confirmed our approach vector," Lynn said without looking up from her tablet. "They are allowing us to dock at Station Primark." "Allowing us," Elena repeated with a small laugh. "They make it sound like a gift." Amara turned from the window. "To them it is. The Emperor believes he is being generous by meeting with us at all. His advisors told him to ignore our request entirely." "Then why did he agree?" Lynn asked. "Curiosity, arrogance, perhaps both." Amara walked to the central table where a holographic map floated in the air. The Kepler frontier glowed between the blue of human space and the red of Valthorian territory. He wants to see what kind of creatures would dare ask for equal negotiation with his empire. The Kepler frontier had been neutral territory for 50 years. Rich in minerals and strategically located, it was valuable enough to fight over. Humanity had proposed a simple solution. They would share it. The Valthorians would mine the outer systems. Humanity would mine the inner ones. Trade routes would benefit both civilizations. It was reasonable. It was fair. And Amara knew the Emperor would hate it. The Olive Branch docked at Station Primark 3 days later. The station was a monument to Valthorian power. It was larger than most moons, bristling with weapons and buzzing with military traffic. Human vessels looked like toys beside the massive Valthorian warships. Ambassador Chen Wei met the generals at the airlock. He was a thin man with worried eyes who had spent his career trying to build bridges between species. Today, those eyes looked more worried than usual. "The Emperor has changed the meeting location," he said quietly as he walked beside Amara. "We were supposed to meet in the diplomatic wing. Now he wants us in the Grand Throne Hall." "He wants an audience," Amara understood immediately. "He wants witnesses for whatever he plans to do. Should we refuse?" Amara considered this for a moment. Behind her, Lynn and Elena exchanged glances but said nothing. They trusted her judgment. They always had. "No," Amara decided. "We came here to talk. We will talk wherever he wants us to talk, but keep the ship ready." The Grand Throne Hall was exactly what its name suggested. It was a vast chamber of black stone and golden light. Pillars rose like the bones of giants. Banners displayed the conquests of 10,000 years. And at the far end, on a throne carved from a single asteroid, sat Emperor Zaltharon IX. He was impressive in the way that predators are impressive. His scales shimmered between purple and black. His eyes were yellow and cold. 4 arms rested on the throne's handles, each ending in claws that could tear through metal. He had ruled for 300 years and intended to rule for 300 more. Hundreds of Valthorian nobles filled the hall. They watched the humans approach with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. Imperial guards lined the walls, their weapons openly displayed. The three generals walked without fear. They had faced death before. They had sent others to die. This was just another room full of danger, and they had spent their lives in such rooms. Humans, the Emperor spoke the word like it tasted bad. You come to my station, you ask for my territory, you speak of sharing as if you were my equals. He leaned forward on his throne. Tell me why I should not simply take what I want. Amara stepped forward. Her voice was calm and clear. Because taking requires effort, Your Majesty. Sharing requires only wisdom. The Kepler frontier is large enough for both our peoples. War would cost you ships and soldiers. Peace would cost you nothing. Peace, the Emperor laughed. The sound echoed through the hall, and his nobles laughed with him. You speak of peace because you are weak. Your species hides in its little corner of the galaxy and calls it choice. But we know the truth. You are prey pretending to be something more. Elena spoke next. Her voice was gentle but firm. We are not prey, Your Majesty. We simply choose not to hunt. Choice? The Emperor's laughter stopped. His yellow eyes narrowed. You have no choice. You have only the illusion of it. Let me show you what happens to species that forget their place. He raised one clawed hand. The Imperial guards moved, not toward the generals, but around them. They formed a circle of weapons and hostile intent. You entered Valthorian space under false pretenses, the Emperor declared. His voice rang through the hall. You are spies, saboteurs, enemies of the Empire. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. Your Majesty, this is outrageous. These women are diplomats under protection of galactic law. Galactic law? The Emperor smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. I am galactic law, and I find them guilty. Lin reached for Amara's arm. We need to leave. Now. But there was nowhere to go. The guards had sealed the exits. The diplomatic vessel was docked and surrounded. They had walked into a trap, and the trap had closed. Amara looked at her friends. At Lin, who had never wanted anything but to protect her people. At Elena, who had healed so many wounds and would leave behind so many broken hearts. She saw acceptance in their eyes. They had known this was possible. They had come anyway. I am sorry, Amara said quietly. Do not be, Lin replied. We knew the risks. Someone had to try, Elena added. Someone always has to try. The Emperor rose from his throne. Let this be a lesson to all who watch. The Valthorian Empire does not negotiate with lesser beings. The Valthorian Empire does not share, and those who forget this truth will be reminded. He gave a signal. The guards raised their weapons. In the last moment, General Amara Okonkwo looked directly into the recording devices that broadcast the scene across the galaxy. She wanted humanity to see. She wanted them to remember. We came in peace, she said clearly. Remember that we came in peace. The weapons fired. 3 of humanity's greatest heroes fell. The Emperor returned to his throne with satisfaction on his face. His nobles cheered. His guards stood at attention. He had taught the galaxy a lesson. He believed the lesson was about Valthorian power. He was wrong. On Earth, in a bunker buried deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, a group of elderly admirals and generals watched the execution in silence. Their faces showed no shock. They had known Amara and Lin and Elena. They had trained with them, fought beside them, loved them as comrades love each other. Admiral James Okonkwo stood at the center of the group. He was 91 years old. His daughter had just died in front of his eyes. His hands did not shake. His voice did not waver. He turned to face his colleagues. Men and women who had spent their lives preparing for a war they hoped would never come. They had built in secret. They had planned in silence. They had prayed that humanity's peaceful face would be enough. Open the vaults, Admiral Okonkwo said. The words hung in the air. Everyone understood what they meant. For 200 years, humanity had hidden its true strength. For 200 years, they had chosen peace. Now the choice was over. The Emperor had killed 3 women who believed in peace. He was about to meet the warriors they had left behind. Deep beneath the earth, machines that had slept for centuries began to wake. In hidden shipyards scattered across human space, crews received orders that changed everything. And in 1,000 military installations, soldiers opened their eyes and reached for weapons that had waited too long for war. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but it would learn. Soon, everyone would learn. The execution broadcast spread across the galaxy like a disease. Every species with access to galactic communications watched the three human women die. Most felt pity, some felt satisfaction, a few felt fear, but nobody expected what came next. Emperor Zal Theron sat in his private chambers and enjoyed the reactions. Reports came from every corner of his empire. His subjects were celebrating. His enemies were trembling. Other galactic powers were sending cautious messages of support, careful not to offend the mightiest civilization in known space. The humans have recalled their ambassador, his chief advisor reported. All human vessels are withdrawing from our space. Of course they are. The emperor examined a glass of rare wine. They run, it is what prey does. Should we pursue? Why bother? They have nothing we want. Let them hide in their little corner and remember this lesson. Perhaps in a century, they will be ready to offer proper tribute. The advisor bowed and left. The emperor returned to his wine. He did not notice that human ships were not fleeing randomly. They were moving with precision, every vessel, every station, every civilian transport, all of them pulling back behind a line that had no military significance, or so the Valthorians believed. In the Himalayan bunker, Admiral Okonkwo stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different location: shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, weapons platforms buried in dead moons, training facilities carved into the ice of frozen worlds. All of them had one thing in common: they were waking up. "Status report," the admiral commanded. General Morrison stepped forward. She was 70 years old and had spent 50 of those years preparing for this moment. Vault Alpha through Sigma are fully operational. Fleet elements are assembling at rally points as planned. Total combat-ready vessels currently stand at 400,000. That number will double within 72 hours. Ground forces? 300 million soldiers in cryosleep are being revived. First wave will be ready in 6 days. Full deployment in 2 weeks. Another officer spoke. Logistics chains are activating across all sectors. Ammunition factories are operational. Fuel production is at maximum capacity. Medical ships are prepared. Admiral Okonkwo nodded slowly. 200 years of preparation. 2 centuries of building in secret while the galaxy dismissed humanity as peaceful and weak. Every government since the first contact with alien life had contributed to this project. Every leader had added to the vaults. They had hoped it would never be needed. That hope had died with 3 brave women. "What about the contingency protocols?" the admiral asked. General Morrison hesitated. "Sir, those were designed for defensive operations only. We never planned to use them offensively." "Plans change." The admiral turned to face his colleagues. "The emperor did not just kill 3 diplomats. He killed our friends, our family, our future. He did it publicly. He did it proudly. If we do not respond, every species in the galaxy will learn that humans can be murdered without consequence." Silence filled the room. Everyone understood the weight of the moment. "I am not asking for revenge," the admiral continued. "Revenge is small. Revenge is personal. What I am asking for is justice, not just for Amara and Lynn and Elena, for every species that lives under Valthorian cruelty, for every world they have crushed, for every civilization that bows because they have no choice." He walked to the central display. The map of the galaxy glowed blue and red. "We are going to give them a choice. We are going to break the Valthorian Empire so completely that it can never threaten anyone again. And when we are done, we are going to show the galaxy what humans really believe in." "Which is?" Morrison asked. "Peace." The admiral smiled grimly. "Real peace. Not the peace of fear, the peace of freedom." The Earth Parliament met in emergency session that night. The debate lasted exactly 12 minutes. When the vote was called, every representative from every nation and colony voted the same way. Unanimous. Without exception, without hesitation, humanity was going to war. Across human space, Families gathered around screens and watched their leaders explain what was happening. Parents held children who did not understand. Veterans reached for uniforms they had never expected to wear again. Young people who had grown up in peace suddenly faced a future of violence. But there were also other reactions. In every city, in every station, crowds gathered to honor the three fallen generals. Their faces appeared on buildings and monuments. Their names were spoken like prayers. They had died for peace. Now their people would fight in their memory. On Mars, Elena Vasquez's family opened their doors to journalists for the first time. Her son, now an elderly man himself, spoke with quiet dignity. "My mother spent her life healing," he said. "She believed that humanity's greatest strength was our compassion. She would not have wanted this war, but she would have understood it. Some things cannot be forgiven. Some lessons must be taught." In Beijing, Lin Meihua's grandchildren watched the recordings of her work. She had designed systems that could make ships invisible. She had created weapons that could break planets. And she had locked them all away because she believed in a better future. "Grandmother always said that power was meaningless without wisdom," her oldest grandchild told the cameras. "She had the power to make humanity the most dangerous species in the galaxy. She chose not to use it. The emperor took that choice away." And in Lagos, Amara Okonkwo's extended family gathered in the home where she had grown up. Her father, Admiral Okonkwo, was not there. He was preparing for war. But her sisters were there, her cousins, her nieces and nephews. They shared stories about a woman who had wanted nothing more than understanding between species. "She used to say that war was easy," her youngest sister remembered. "Any fool can destroy. It takes courage to build. It takes strength to forgive." She went to the Valthorians because she believed that even empires could learn. She was wrong about them, but she was not wrong about us. The first sign that something was different came 3 days after the execution. Valthorian border sensors detected an anomaly near the edge of their space. A small disturbance that could have been anything. A comet, a solar flare, background radiation. The sensor operators logged it and forgot about it. They had no reason to worry. Human ships had fled. Human space was quiet. The prey had hidden in its hole. But the anomaly did not go away. It grew. More disturbances appeared. Then more. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Admiral Varkeith was commanding the border station when the alerts began. He was a veteran of many campaigns. He had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. He had never been afraid of anything. He was afraid now. "What am I looking at?" he demanded. His sensor officer's voice shook. "Ships, Admiral. Human ships. They are coming out of hidden jump points that we never detected. They must have built them in secret. They must have been there for... how many?" The officer checked his readings 3 times before answering. 400,000 confirmed. More arriving every second. Admiral Varkeith felt his blood run cold. The entire Valthorian Imperial fleet numbered 50,000 vessels. The humans had almost 10 times that number, and they were still coming. "Send a message to the Imperial Palace," he ordered. "Send it now." The message reached Emperor Zaltheron during a celebration. He was entertaining nobles and accepting congratulations for his handling of the human problem. The messenger interrupted without permission. His face was pale with terror. "Your Majesty," the messenger said, "the humans are coming." "Let them come." The emperor laughed. "We will crush them as we crush their diplomats." "Your Majesty, you do not understand." The messenger handed over the report. "Their fleet, it is larger than anything we have ever seen. Larger than anything anyone has ever seen." The emperor read the report. His laughter died. The numbers were impossible. No species could build such a fleet in secret. No civilization could hide such power from Valthorian intelligence. But the sensors did not lie. "This must be a mistake," he said. "It is not a mistake, Your Majesty." The messenger swallowed hard. They were not hiding from war. They were preparing for it. They have been preparing for 200 years. The emperor rose from his throne. His mind raced through possibilities. Alliances with other powers, defensive formations, strategic retreats. But every calculation led to the same conclusion. The Valthorian Empire had never faced an enemy like this. "Alert all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Full mobilization. Prepare for defensive operations." "Yes, Your Majesty." The Emperor watched the messenger leave. For the first time in 300 years of rule, he felt something he had never felt before. He felt doubt. On the bridge of the human flagship Retribution, Admiral Okonkwo watched his fleet emerge from hyperspace. 400,000 vessels, carriers and battleships, destroyers and cruisers, medical ships and supply vessels, the largest military force ever assembled by any species in galactic history. And this was just the first wave. Fleet status, he asked. All vessels accounted for, Admiral. Weapon systems online. Navigation locked. Crews ready. The Admiral looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere in that direction, the Valthorian Empire waited. Somewhere out there, his daughter's killers celebrated their crime. They thought they had won. They thought they had taught humanity a lesson. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Open a channel, the Admiral said. Broadcast on all frequencies. Channel open, sir. Admiral Okonkwo spoke slowly and clearly. His words would reach every corner of the galaxy. Every species would hear them. Every civilization would understand. This is Admiral James Okonkwo of the United Human Fleet. We are not here for conquest. We are not here for territory. We are here because the Valthorian Empire murdered 3 women who came in peace. We are here because the galaxy needs to learn that humanity's kindness is a choice, not a weakness. He paused, letting his words sink in. To the Valthorian Empire, I say this. You have 72 hours to surrender all personnel responsible for the execution of our diplomats. If you do not, we will come for them, and we will not stop until your empire can never threaten anyone again. This is not a negotiation. This is not a warning. This is a promise. He made a cutting gesture, and the channel closed. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had dismissed humanity as harmless watched the broadcast in stunned silence. The peaceful species, the quiet traders, the diplomats who never raised their voices. They had hidden their strength for 2 centuries. Now the hiding was over. The war had begun. The 72 hours passed without response from the Valthorian Empire. Emperor Zal Theron refused to surrender anyone. He refused to apologize. He refused to believe that humans could threaten his civilization. His pride would not allow it. When the deadline ended, the human fleet moved. They did not attack randomly. They did not strike at population centers. They had a plan, and that plan was terrifyingly precise. Fleet Commander Tor Valak was the first to understand what the humans were doing. He commanded the Valthorian 4th Fleet, stationed at the Draenor shipyards. These shipyards had built warships for 6,000 years. They were the pride of the Empire. They were also completely defenseless against what came for them. Human ships appeared without warning. One moment, sensors showed empty space. The next moment, 300 warships surrounded the shipyards. Tor Valak had no time to raise shields, no time to charge weapons, no time to call for help. But the humans did not fire immediately. Instead, they broadcast a message. This is the human fleet to all personnel at Draenor shipyards. You have 30 minutes to evacuate all civilian workers. Any vessel that leaves peacefully will not be harmed. Any vessel that attempts to fight will be destroyed. Your time begins now. Tor Valak stared at his screen in disbelief. They were warning him? They were giving him time? It is a trick, his first officer insisted. They want us to lower our guard. Then why broadcast it? Tor Valak shook his head. No, they mean it. They actually mean it. He gave the order to evacuate. Workers streamed into transport ships. Families who lived on the station grabbed what they could and fled. Military personnel prepared for battle, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Everyone knew it. Exactly 30 minutes after the warning, the human fleet opened fire. The Draenor shipyards, which had stood for 6 millennia, ceased to exist in 7 minutes. Every dock was destroyed. Every construction bay was vaporized. Every warship still in production was reduced to floating debris. When the last explosion faded, there was nothing left but twisted metal and silence. But the evacuated transports were untouched. Every civilian ship that had fled reached safety. The humans had kept their word. This pattern repeated across Valthorian space. Shipyards were destroyed, but workers were evacuated. Military bases were annihilated, but nearby civilian stations were protected. Weapons factories were erased from existence, but the schools and hospitals a few kilometers away remained standing. The Valthorian military could not understand it. War was supposed to be brutal. War was supposed to be cruel. Every civilization in the galaxy knew that victory came from crushing your enemy completely. But the humans refused to play by those rules. General Kethmar was a veteran of 30 campaigns. He had destroyed entire civilizations. He had burned cities and enslaved populations. He was one of the most feared commanders in Valthorian history, and he was losing. "They fight like nothing I have ever seen," he reported to the Imperial Palace. "Their tactics change constantly. Their technology is beyond our estimates. Their soldiers show no fear and ask for no mercy. But they do not kill civilians. They do not target infrastructure. They are destroying our military while leaving everything else intact." "That is weakness," Emperor Zaltheron insisted. "Use it against them. Put civilians in military installations. They will not dare to attack." "We tried, Your Majesty. They detected our deception and evacuated the civilians themselves. They sent rescue teams into our own bases to remove the people we were using as shields. Then they destroyed the bases anyway." The Emperor's scales darkened with anger. "Then what do you suggest?" "I suggest we sue for peace while we still have something to negotiate with." "Never." General Kethmar bowed his head. He had served the Empire for 300 years. He had never questioned his emperor, but he was beginning to wonder if that loyalty was misplaced. As the weeks passed, the human strategy became clear to everyone. They were not trying to conquer the Valthorian Empire. They were neutering it. They were removing its ability to wage war permanently. Every shipyard, every weapons factory, every military academy, every research facility that developed instruments of death, all of them were systematically identified and destroyed. The Valthorian economy collapsed. Their military supply chains shattered. Commanders who had once led mighty fleets found themselves with no ships to command. Soldiers who had trained for glory found themselves with no weapons to carry. And still the humans came, relentless, unstoppable, precise. On the human flagship Retribution, Admiral Okonkwo watched the campaign progress with grim satisfaction. Holographic displays showed the shrinking circle of Valthorian military power. Every day that circle grew smaller. "Admiral," Captain Shen approached with a tablet. "The latest casualty reports." Okonkwo took the tablet and read it carefully. Human losses were minimal. The Valthorians, despite their best efforts, could not match human technology or tactics. But minimal did not mean zero. Every name on the list was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. "Have the letters been sent to the families?" "Yes, sir. Personal messages from you, as you requested." "Good." The Admiral handed back the tablet. "What about the Valthorian civilians?" "Humanitarian teams are operating in all liberated sectors. Food distribution is proceeding as planned. Medical aid is being provided to anyone who needs it. We have set up refugee camps for displaced populations." "Any resistance?" "Some. The Valthorians do not understand why we are helping them. Many think it is a trap." Admiral Okonkwo nodded slowly. "Keep helping them anyway. Let them see who we really are." This was the part of the war that confused the galaxy most. The humans were devastating the Valthorian military, but they were also feeding Valthorian civilians. They were destroying weapons factories but building hospitals. They were ending an empire's power while saving its people. A journalist from the Neutral Council managed to interview a human soldier during a brief ceasefire. The soldier was young. She could not have been more than 25 years old. Her armor was scorched from battle, but her eyes were calm. "How do you do it?" the journalist asked. "How do you fight so hard and still show mercy?" The soldier thought about the question for a moment. "We are not fighting the Valthorian people. We are fighting what the Valthorian Empire represents. The people are victims too. They did not choose to be born into a civilization that conquers and oppresses. They did not ask for rulers who murder diplomats for sport. But they support the emperor. Many of them celebrated when your generals were killed. Some did, many did not. And even those who celebrated did so because they were taught to hate us. They were taught that we were weak. They were taught that strength means cruelty." The soldier shook her head. "We are teaching them something different. We are teaching them that real strength is choosing not to be cruel when you have every reason to be." The interview spread across the galaxy. Species that had prepared for the humans to become the new oppressors watched in confusion. This was not how empires behaved. This was not how conquerors acted. Something was different about these strange creatures from the death world called Earth. 3 weeks into the war, human forces reached the first of the 12 core worlds. These were the heart of the Valthorian Empire, the oldest colonies, the most important cities, the Emperor's personal domain. Fleet Admiral Varketh, the same officer who had first detected the human fleet, now commanded the defense of Core World Primus. He had 50 warships left. The humans had thousands. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "incoming transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired. He looked old. But his voice was steady. "Admiral Varketh, I am giving you the same offer I have given every Valthorian commander. Surrender your forces and evacuate your civilians. We will not harm anyone who does not fight. We will provide humanitarian aid to those who need it. This is not a trick. This is not a deception. This is simply who we are." Varketh stared at his human counterpart. He had spent his entire life believing that humans were weak, that their peace was cowardice, that their diplomacy was desperation. Now he was looking at a man who had lost his daughter to Valthorian cruelty and was still offering mercy. "Why?" Varketh asked. "We killed your family. We murdered your diplomats. We laughed about it. Why do you not want revenge?" Admiral Okonkwo was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "I want revenge every moment of every day. I dream about it. I wake up hungry for it. My daughter died because your emperor wanted to feel powerful. My friends died because your empire believes that strength means cruelty." He paused. "But revenge would make me like him. It would prove that all the things he believed about us were true. And my daughter died believing they were wrong." Varketh felt something he had never felt before. Shame. "I will order the evacuation," he said. "My forces will surrender." "Thank you, Admiral. Your people will be treated with dignity." The transmission ended. Varketh turned to his crew. They were watching him with expressions of shock and confusion. He understood. Their entire worldview was crumbling. "You heard the Admiral," he said. "Begin evacuation procedures. All military personnel will surrender their weapons peacefully." "Sir," his first officer protested, "the Emperor will have us executed for treason." "Perhaps." Varketh looked at his hands. Hands that had destroyed cities. Hands that had killed millions. "But I have served the Empire for 200 years. I have followed every order. I have committed every atrocity that was asked of me. And I always told myself it was necessary, that it was strength, that it was the way things had to be." He looked up at his crew. "I was wrong. The humans are teaching us that strength does not require cruelty, that power does not require oppression. Perhaps it is time we learn that lesson." The evacuation of Core World Primus took 6 hours. Every civilian who wanted to leave was given safe passage. Every soldier who surrendered was treated as a prisoner of war, not an enemy to be destroyed. When it was over, human forces destroyed every military installation on the planet, every weapon, every warship, every factory that could build instruments of death. But the cities remained standing. The hospitals kept running. The children kept going to school. The Valthorian Empire was dying, but its people would survive. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched Core World Primus shrink in the view screen. 1 down, 11 to go. "Admiral," Captain Chen approached. "Message from Earth. The Parliament wants to know our timeline. Tell them we will be done within 2 months. The Emperor will face justice. His empire will be dismantled, and then we will go home. And after that," Admiral Okonkwo thought about his daughter, about her smile, about her dreams, about everything she had believed in. "After that, we rebuild what they tried to destroy. We prove that peace is possible. We show the galaxy that humans remember those who wronged us, but we do not become them." He turned away from the view screen. "Send the fleet to the next core world and remind everyone why we are here, not for revenge, for justice." The fleet moved forward. The campaign continued. And somewhere in the galaxy, species that had lived in fear of the Valthorian Empire began to hope that change was possible. The humans were coming, and unlike every conqueror before them, they were coming to set the galaxy free. The Valthorian Empire had stood for 10,000 years. It had conquered 100 species. It had crushed rebellions on 1,000 worlds. No enemy had ever reached the core worlds. No force had ever threatened the imperial throne. Until now. Emperor Zaltharan watched the reports with growing fury. Core world after core world fell to the human advance. His fleets were scattered. His armies were broken. His generals, the ones who still lived, were either surrendering or disappearing. The greatest empire in galactic history was crumbling like sand. Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Thexkor spoke carefully. He was the highest-ranking military officer, still loyal to the Emperor. We must consider negotiation. Negotiation? The Emperor's voice was deadly quiet. You want me to beg for peace from animals? Not beg, Your Majesty. Negotiate. The humans have made their demands clear. Surrender those responsible for the diplomatic execution. Accept demilitarization. Face an international tribunal. If we agree now, we can preserve something. I would rather burn than kneel to lesser beings. Thexkor closed his eyes. He had served the Empire for his entire life. He had believed in its glory. He had committed terrible acts in its name. Now he was watching it die because one ruler's pride was greater than his wisdom. Then we will burn, Your Majesty, but the galaxy will remember that we chose death over admitting we were wrong. The Emperor dismissed him with a wave. Thexkor bowed and left. He knew what was coming. He had seen it in the eyes of the other military leaders. They were tired. They were beaten. And they were beginning to question whether the Emperor deserved their loyalty. 3 days later, the coup began. General Kethmar led it. He had been the Empire's most feared commander. He had destroyed civilizations without mercy. But he had also watched the humans offer compassion to the same people he had taught to expect only cruelty. Something had broken inside him. Something had been rebuilt. The Emperor has led us to ruin, Kethmar announced to his troops. He murdered diplomats for sport. He started a war we cannot win. He has destroyed everything our ancestors built because he refused to admit that other species might be our equals. His soldiers listened in stunned silence. These were warriors who had been taught from birth that the Emperor was sacred, that questioning him was treason, that loyalty was the highest virtue. I am not asking you to betray the Empire, Kethmar continued. I am asking you to save it. The humans do not want to destroy our people. They want to destroy our ability to threaten them. If we remove the Emperor and accept their terms, our children will live. Our civilization will survive. We will have a future. Half his forces followed him. The other half remained loyal to the throne. Civil war erupted on 3 core worlds simultaneously. Valthorians killed Valthorians, while human forces watched from orbit, waiting to see which side would emerge. On the human flagship Retribution, Admiral Okonkwo monitored the situation with a heavy heart. He had not wanted this. He had hoped the Emperor would see reason. He had hoped the Valthorians would find their own path to peace. Admiral, Captain Chen reported, General Kethmar is requesting communication. Put him through. Kethmar's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted. His uniform was torn, but his eyes were clear. Admiral Okonkwo, I am offering the unconditional surrender of all forces under my command. We accept your terms. We will deliver the Emperor and all officials responsible for the diplomatic murders. We ask only that you help us end this civil war before more of our people die. Admiral Okonkwo studied the Valthorian general. This was a being who had destroyed entire species, who had ordered massacres, who had built his career on cruelty and conquest. And yet here he was, asking for help. Why? The Admiral asked. Why turn against everything you believed? Kethmar was silent for a moment. I watched your soldiers give food to children who had been taught to hate them. I watched your medics heal soldiers who had tried to kill them. I watched you destroy our weapons while protecting our hospitals. He shook his head. I spent my life believing that strength meant dominance, that power meant cruelty. You showed me another way. We are not saints, General. We have done terrible things in this war. Yes, but you did not have to show mercy. You did not have to feed our civilians. You did not have to treat our prisoners with dignity. You chose to do these things. That choice changed everything. Admiral Okonkwo made his decision. We will help you in the civil war, but the emperor must face trial. All those responsible for the murders must face trial. Non-negotiable. Agreed. Then welcome to the right side of history, General. Let us finish this together. The final battle for the Valthorian throne world lasted 2 days. Human forces worked alongside Kethmar's rebels to secure the planet. They neutralized loyalist positions with surgical precision. They evacuated civilians from combat zones. They treated every prisoner with the same dignity they had shown throughout the war. The Imperial Palace fell on the second day. Admiral Okonkwo led the assault team personally. He wanted to look into the eyes of the being who had killed his daughter. He needed to see this end. The palace was a monument to 10,000 years of conquest. Every wall displayed trophies from defeated civilizations. Every room contained treasures stolen from conquered worlds. It was beautiful and terrible, a temple to pride and cruelty. Emperor Zal Theron waited in his throne room. His guards lay dead around him, killed in the fighting. He sat alone on his ancient throne, surrounded by the symbols of his power. His yellow eyes watched the humans approach without fear. So, he said as Admiral Okonkwo stepped forward, the prey has become the predator. I suppose you expect me to beg. I expect nothing from you, Emperor. I learned long ago that expecting decency from the indecent leads only to disappointment. The Admiral stopped a few meters from the throne. His soldiers spread out behind him, weapons ready but not raised. This moment was about justice, not violence. You killed my daughter, Okonkwo said. You killed two of the finest people humanity has ever produced. You did it to send a message. You did it to feel powerful. And now your empire is gone. Your military is destroyed. Your legacy is ash. And you will kill me. It was not a question. No! The Admiral's voice was firm. We are taking you to stand trial. You will face judges from a dozen species. You will answer for your crimes. And then you will face whatever punishment the tribunal decides. The Emperor laughed. It was a hollow, bitter sound. A trial? You could destroy me right now. You could avenge your precious diplomats with a single command. Why follow procedures? Why pretend that law matters? Because law does matter. Because my daughter believed in justice, not revenge. Because the difference between us and you is that we do not murder people to send messages. Admiral Okonkwo turned to his soldiers. Take him into custody. Treat him with the same dignity we have shown every prisoner. Not because he deserves it, but because we do. The soldiers moved forward. The Emperor did not resist. Perhaps he was too proud. Perhaps he was too tired. Perhaps somewhere deep inside, he understood that this was the end. As they led him away, the Emperor spoke one last time. You think you have won, human, but empires rise and fall. Civilizations come and go. Eventually, your species will face the same choice we faced, power or principle. And when that day comes, you will choose power. Everyone does. Admiral Okonkwo watched the Emperor disappear through the doors. He thought about those words. He thought about his daughter. He thought about everything humanity had built and everything they could become. Maybe, he said quietly, but not today. The news of the Emperor's capture spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had lived in fear of the Valthorian Empire for millennia watched in amazement. The tyrant had been defeated. The oppressor had been brought low. And the humans, strange and unpredictable as they were, had done what no one else could do. But the real shock came in the days that followed. Human forces did not occupy Valthorian worlds. They did not install puppet governments. They did not demand tribute or territory. Instead, they announced that every Valthorian world would be given independence. They would be free to choose their own governments. They would be free to build their own futures. Humanitarian aid flowed into Valthorian space. Food and medicine, engineers and teachers. Everything needed to rebuild from the devastation of war. The humans gave freely and asked for nothing in return. The galactic community did not know what to make of it. This was not how conquerors behaved. This was not how wars ended. Something was different about these humans. On the former throne world, now renamed New Dawn by its provisional government, Admiral Okonkwo walked through the streets alone. He wore civilian clothes. He carried no weapons. He wanted to see what humanity had left behind. The streets were busy. Valthorians went about their lives, shopping and working and talking. Some stared at him when they recognized his face. Most looked away quickly. A few nodded with something like respect. An old Valthorian woman approached him. Her scales had faded with age and she walked with a cane, but her eyes were sharp. "You are the human admiral," she said. "I am. You destroyed my world. You killed my grandson in the fighting. He was loyal to the Emperor." Admiral Okonkwo met her eyes without flinching. "I am sorry for your loss. I lost my daughter to your Emperor. War takes from everyone." The old woman studied him for a long moment. "Your soldiers came to my neighborhood during the battle. There was a hospital nearby. We thought they would destroy it. Instead, they protected it. They brought supplies. They helped evacuate the wounded." She paused and something shifted in her expression. "I have hated humans my entire life. I was taught to hate you from birth. But I have never seen an enemy act the way your soldiers acted. I do not understand you. I do not know if I will ever understand you. But I am tired of hate." She bowed her head slightly and walked away. Admiral Okonkwo watched her go. He thought about all the hate in the galaxy, all the fear and violence and cruelty that had built empires like this one. And he thought about the 3 women who had died believing that a different future was possible. His communicator buzzed. Captain Chen's voice came through. "Admiral, the tribunal is convening. They need you for the opening statements." "On my way." Admiral Okonkwo took one last look at the city around him. Valthorian and human worked side by side clearing debris. Children played in parks that had been battlefields days ago. Life was returning. His daughter would have loved this. She would have seen it as proof that her sacrifice meant something. That peace was possible even after war. That enemies could become something else. He walked toward the tribunal building. The trial would begin soon. The Emperor would answer for his crimes, and humanity would show the galaxy that justice did not require cruelty. The war was ending, but the real work was just beginning. The tribunal lasted 47 days. Witnesses from 100 worlds testified. Evidence was presented. Arguments were made. Emperor Zaltharon sat through every session, silent and proud, refusing to defend himself or express regret. The verdict surprised no one. Guilty on all charges: war crimes, crimes against sentient beings, murder of diplomatic personnel, genocide. The list went on for pages. The punishment was life imprisonment on a secured asteroid facility. He would spend his remaining centuries alone, watching the galaxy he had terrorized learn to live without fear. Some wanted execution. Many species argued that death was the only appropriate punishment for such crimes. But the human delegation opposed it. Admiral Okonkwo spoke for them at the sentencing hearing. "Death is easy," he said. "Death is quick. Death is exactly what the Emperor believed in. He killed because it was simple. He destroyed because it was efficient. If we execute him, we become what he was. We prove that his way of thinking was right." He looked at the assembled representatives from across the galaxy. "Let him live. Let him watch as everything he built is replaced with something better. Let him see that the galaxy does not need fear to function. Let him understand that his entire life was based on a lie. That is justice. That is what my daughter would have wanted." The tribunal agreed. Emperor Zaltharon was taken away. He did not speak. He did not resist. Perhaps he was waiting for rescue that would never come. Perhaps he simply had nothing left to say. With the trial complete, the human fleet began its withdrawal. Ship by ship, they departed from Valthorian space. They took nothing. They claimed nothing. They left behind only the help they had given and the changes they had inspired. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Every species knew the pattern. You conquered, you occupied, you exploited. That was how power worked. That was how it had always worked. The humans did something different. On Earth, the returning soldiers received heroes' welcomes, parades and ceremonies, speeches and monuments. But the celebrations were muted. Everyone knew the cost. Everyone remembered the 3 women who had died to make this war necessary. Admiral Okonkwo declined all invitations to celebrate. Instead, he traveled to the memorial that had been built on the site where the executions took place. The planet was now independent. governed by Valthorians who had chosen a new path. They had invited him to see what they had created. The memorial was simple: 3 pillars of white stone, each bearing the name and face of a fallen general. Around them, a garden of flowers from both Earth and Valthorian worlds grew together. Humans and Valthorians tended the garden side by side. Admiral Okonkwo stood before the pillar that bore his daughter's face. Amara Okonkwo, general, diplomat, dreamer. The words carved beneath her image were taken from her final message. We came in peace. Remember that we came in peace. He stood there for a long time. He thought about her childhood, her first steps, her first words, the way she had laughed when she was happy, the way she had cried when she saw injustice. He thought about the woman she had become, the lives she had touched, the future she had believed in. I did what I could, he said quietly. I hope it was enough. A voice spoke behind him. It was more than enough. He turned. A young Valthorian woman stood there. She wore civilian clothes and carried a small child in her arms. Her eyes were wet with tears. My grandfather served under Emperor Zaltheron, she said. He was one of the guards who carried out the execution. He killed your daughter. Admiral Okonkwo felt his heart clench. For a moment, all the anger he had buried came rushing back. All the grief, all the hatred. The young woman continued. He died in the Civil War, fighting against the emperor he had served. He left a message for me. He said he had done terrible things. He said he had been taught that cruelty was strength. He said he was wrong. She stepped closer. The child in her arms looked at the admiral with curious eyes. He asked me to find you, to tell you that he was sorry, that he understood too late what your daughter was trying to do, that he wished he had listened instead of following orders. The admiral looked at the child, innocent, unknowing, born into a galaxy that was changing because 3 women had died and 1 old man had chosen justice over revenge. What is the child's name? He asked. Amara. The young woman smiled through her tears. I named her after your daughter. I want her to grow up knowing that peace is possible, that enemies can become friends, that the old ways do not have to be our ways. Admiral Okonkwo felt something break inside him, something that had been holding him together through all the months of war and loss and grief. He wept. For the first time since his daughter died, he allowed himself to weep. The young woman waited quietly. The child reached out a small hand toward him. He took it gently. Your daughter is beautiful, he said. I hope she has a long and happy life. She will, because of what you did, because of what your people showed us. They stood together in the garden, human and Valthorian, old enemies finding their way towards something new. Around them, flowers from 2 worlds bloomed in the same soil. 6 months later, a new diplomatic mission launched from Earth. Their destination was a newly contacted species on the far side of the galaxy. The mission was led by young officers who had joined the diplomatic corps because of the 3 fallen generals. They believed what Amara and Lynn and Elena had believed. That peace was possible. That understanding was worth dying for. The ceremony before departure was held at the Earth Memorial for the 3 generals. Thousands attended. Veterans of the Valthorian War stood beside civilians who had never known conflict. Children too young to remember the executions listened to stories of women they would never meet. Admiral Okonkwo, now retired, gave the farewell speech. He was 100 years old. His hands shook. His voice was soft. But his words carried across the silent crowd. 3 years ago, we lost 3 remarkable women. They went to an enemy with open hands and were murdered for their trust. We responded with war. We broke an empire. We freed 100 worlds. And then we did something that surprised everyone, including ourselves. He paused, looking out at the faces before him. We went home. We did not become what we destroyed. We did not take what we had won. We proved that humanity's strength was never in our weapons or our ships. It was in our choice to use them only when we must and to put them away when we can. He turned to face the young diplomats who would carry humanity's message to the stars. You are going to meet beings who have never heard of Earth. They do not know about the Valthorian War. They do not know what we are capable of. You will decide how they see us. You will choose what story they hear. His eyes found the portraits of the 3 generals that hung above the ceremony. Make them proud. Show the galaxy who we really are. And remember that the most dangerous warriors are those who hate war the most. Because when we fight for something worth fighting for. And when we win, we prove that winning does not require becoming monsters. The diplomats boarded their ship. The engines powered up. The vessel rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars. Another mission of peace. Another chance to prove that the galaxy could be better. On a quiet street in New Dawn, the former Valthorian throne world, a grandmother walked with her granddaughter. The child was 7 years old. She had grown up in a world where humans and Valthorians worked together, where former enemies shared meals and told stories, where the war was becoming history. "Grandmother," the child said, "why did the humans fight us?" The old woman thought carefully before answering. She had been a noble in the old empire. She had celebrated when the human generals were executed. She had watched everything she believed in crumble. "They fought us because we hurt them," she said. "We killed people they loved. We thought that made us strong. We thought they would be afraid." Were they afraid? No. They were angry, but they were also sad. They did not want to fight. They wanted to talk. They wanted to be friends. We were the ones who refused. The child frowned. "Then why did they help us after they won? Why did they give us food and medicine? Why did they let us choose our own leaders?" The grandmother smiled. It had taken her years to understand the answer. Years of watching humans work alongside her people. Years of seeing mercy where she expected cruelty. "Because they wanted us to be better," she said. "They did not want to rule us. They wanted us to rule ourselves. They believed that if they showed us kindness, we would learn to show kindness to others." Did it work? The old woman looked around the street. Shops and homes and schools. Children playing without fear. A future that the old empire would never have allowed. "Yes," she said. "I think it did." They walked on. The sun was setting over a world that had once been the heart of tyranny. Now it was becoming something else. Something the humans had made possible by choosing justice over revenge. By proving that strength did not require cruelty. By showing that the most powerful thing in the galaxy was not a weapon or a fleet, but a choice. Somewhere among the stars, 3 women smiled. Their dream was becoming real. One world at a time, one choice at a time. Forever. The galaxy would never forget the humans, not because of the war they had won, but because of the peace they had given, because when they had every reason to hate, they chose to hope. And that choice changed everything. That was humanity. That was who they really were. And the galaxy was better for knowing them.